Alright, we're going to be looking at the layers of the heart, and hopefully this looks familiar to you. This is the heart. Um, we're going to look at the actual layers that are in the heart, that make up the heart, and then there's actually something called a pericardium, which actually surrounds the heart. We'll be talking about that as well today. Before we get into that, I want to real quickly just reacquaint ourselves with a couple of the structures of the heart before we get into it. So this right here is where blood enters the heart. This is called the right atrium, and blood goes from the right atrium to the right ventricle. And it does so through a valve. And again, these valves are important because it makes sure that blood is going in the correct direction. And so what this is between the atria and the ventricle. We're actually going to call this a atrioventricular valve. And there's two types of valves specifically that are between the atria and the ventricle, and one is called the tricuspid. And then the other one is called the mitral valve. So already you should know the tricuspid is this one right here, and the mitral is this one right here. And again, those are the valves between the atria and the ventricles. And so if this is the mitral valve, that means that this is going to be actually the left atrium and the left ventricle. And again, we're today going to be getting into the actual layers of the heart. So what we're going to be doing is looking right here. We're going to be zooming in right in this stage right here. Okay, and if you notice in the chamber, or again in the left ventricle, what we're going to have is all these different kinds of, and I'm going to try and attempt to draw this, what we're going to call the red blood cells. Kind of look like inner tubes. Try another one here. This is my poor drawing of a red blood cell, RBCs. Okay, so that's what's inside the chamber. And what we have is the first layer of the heart. Right here, it's a very, very thin layer of the heart. And this is called the endocardium. Endocardium. And again, that would be this lining of the heart that's inside each one of these chambers. So it's inside the ventricle here, and it's inside the ventricle as well as the atria. And what this does is it prevents, it's got a very smooth lining, and what it does is it prevents blood from clogging and clotting when it's in the chambers. So it's very smooth. And again, making sure blood is flowing in the correct direction and it's not clotting. So that's the endocardium. The next layer that we have here, right here, I'll shade in right here, we're zooming in. This is what we call the myocardium. And this is the actual heart muscle. And this is the thickest part of the heart right here. Get a little thicker brush. So if I shade this in right here, this is the meat of the heart. Okay, and then this is called, again, the myocardium. So this is the muscle part of the heart. This is the part that demands oxygen. These are where the muscle cells are. Okay, so this is the actual, what the muscle cells make up a part of the heart. Okay, so that's the myocardium. And then the next layer that we're going to be looking at is a layer outside of that. And it's the outermost layer physically of the heart. And if the innermost layer, since it's called the endocardium, endo kind of sounds like inside, this is going to be called the epicardium. Oh. Again, this is the most outside portion of the heart. Okay, so that would be like right out here. This would be the epicardium. And again, that's all the way around the heart, on the right side, on the left side, the whole thing. Okay. All right. So now we're going to get to this is the physically three portion of the heart. We're going to look at something called the uh, pericardium. Okay. And what the pericardium is basically just like a sac-like structure around the heart that is there for protection, and then also there to reduce friction. Every time the heart moves and contracts, there's a potential for creating friction and rubbing on those cells. But what we actually have right here, right outside the epicardium, is a gap. Right here we have a gap. And there's actually fluid inside that gap. And what that fluid does is it helps reduce friction. Because on the other side we have right here another portion of the called the pericardium, and I'll label this here at the end. But this part of the pericardium is the, let's see the space here, parietal. Right here. So physically right here is the actual three layers of the heart. And what we have out here is what we call the pericardium, which is there for protection. There's one last layer, the parietal right here, and actually the epicardium is part of the, technically part of the pericardium as well. It's more of a delicate tissue, and what we're going to have on the very, very outside here, and I'll make this blue. This is a little bit thicker, and it's a little more, really mostly for protection. So this is a much thicker, robust part of the pericardium, and it's called a fibrous layer. And technically, all the way from the epicardium to the fibrous layer is called the pericardium. Peri meaning around the heart. Okay, so what we have is the fibrous layer, the very outside, and then we have this parietal and the epicardium, and together what these make, and you'll see this term, and that's why I just want to make sure you have it with you to use, is in the textbook you may see serous. So the serous portion of the pericardium. Okay, so this is our layers of the heart. We've got the three right here, the endocardium, myocardium, and epicardium. There's a fluid gap, and then you have the parietal portion, and then the fibrous portion. So let me see if I can scroll down here. So here's just some of the functions for these as I was kind of walking through. So let's see. Let me see if I can scroll up here. Whoa. Okay, here we go. So the endocardium, myocardium, and then the epicardium right here. These make up the three layers of the heart. And again, the endocardium is that smooth lining inside the heart, prevents blood clotting. The myocardium is responsible for the pumping of the muscle cells. And then you have the serous portion of the pericardium, and specifically it's the epicardium, which is the outermost layer of the heart. And again, the pericardium is this triple layer sac that's going to protect the heart. And so that includes, and I know there's a lot of words being thrown around here. Oh, that's going to include, hold on, here we go. That's going to include all of this right here. So there's actually three layers of the pericardium as well. The epicardium, the serous fluid in the gap, the parietal, and then the fibrous. So these are three layers of the pericardium. Okay, and the part that gets kind of confusing is this epicardium, which is the outermost layer technically of the heart, actually is where the pericardium starts. So it kind of does double duty. It's part of the heart and it's also part of the pericardium. So again, every time your heart's pumping, it's really important that we have layers of tissue that are going to help actually ensure that the heart keeps pumping and that it's not actually we don't have friction or different things that can actually hurt the heart as it pumps.